One blow, one locked study, one missing watch. The train stopped. Poirot stepped down. Hastings followed. Florence waited, tense. A servant greeted them. "Monsieur, the Count is dead." Poirot nodded. "We know. Show us." They entered the Palazzo. Silence in every hall. Staff lined the corridor, eyes low, nervous hands. Whispers under breath. Poirot raised a finger. "Not now. Later." He walked forward. Hastings trailed behind. At the double doors, locked. A guard stood stiff. "Since morning, monsieur. No one inside." Poirot studied the keyhole. Cold brass. Unused in hours. He turned. "Unlock." The door creaked. They entered. The study smelled stale, not lived in, not natural. Poirot's eyes swept. The desk, central. Curtains drawn, lamp left on, the chair. Wrong. Hastings frowned. "What's wrong with it?" Poirot pointed. "Look closer." A mark on the rug. The chair had been moved, now against the wall. But it had faced the desk. Hastings muttered. "Someone sat there." Poirot replied. "Correct." He bent low. The inkwell lay tipped, bronze, heavy, edge darkened. One strike, fatal. He replaced it, his gaze fixed. The weapon. Hastings shifted uneasily. "No struggle?" Poirot shook his head. "Not one." He trusted. He circled the desk, opened a drawer, stopped. Strange. Inside lay the Count's watch. Gold. Chain coiled, not on his wrist, placed with care. Hastings leaned closer. "Why there?" Poirot's tone was flat. "Because the visitor asked." Poirot closed the drawer. His hand rested on it. He stared at the curtains. Tight. Closed. No daylight in. "Why cover windows?" Hastings asked. Poirot answered quietly. "Because eyes outside must not see." He touched the lamp. Warm. Still burning. Since daybreak. Artificial light. In daylight. Deliberate. Poirot stood still. Hastings waited. Staff shuffled in the corridor. Fear hung heavy. But Poirot spoke calm. "Everything here," he said, "shows control. Not rage, not chance." He looked at Hastings. Whoever came with purpose. Hastings pressed. "Then this was planned?" Poirot raised a brow. "Oui. Planned. Perfectly." He stepped back, hands behind his back. His mustache twitched. Once. Then he spoke low. "There was a visitor." He paused. "Expected." His eyes fixed on the desk, but unseen. She looked calm, too calm. The police sat first. Lady Bianca entered, straight posture, hands steady, eyes unreadable. Hastings leaned near Poirot. "Not shaken at all," Poirot whispered back, or hiding it well. The inspector spoke. "Madame, your husband, we ask questions." She nodded once. "Ask." Her tone flat, not soft, not defensive, controlled. Rumors spread already. Hastings had heard them. In halls. Whispers of affairs, of cold. Dinners, of public fights. Florence buzzed with gossip. Poirot's gaze never left her face. He watched her words. And the space between them. "Your marriage," the inspector pressed. "Describe it." She exhaled slowly. "Distant. He was proud. I was silent." Her eyes moved away. Was there conflict? She answered quick. "Yes, but not murder." Hastings scribbled notes. Every word. Sharp. Every denial. "Clear." Poirot interrupted. "Madame, the study. Locked. The watch-in drawer. Do you explain?" Her face stayed firm. "I do not. He lived private. He hid things. Always." Poirot tilted his head. "But the letters? The ribbon?" Her mouth pressed tight. "I know nothing." The inspector leaned forward. "Yet others suggest otherwise. A woman close to him." She gave no flinch. Her reply steady. "He had many rumors. Not all true." Poirot crossed arms. "You were calm when told of his death." She blinked once. I had long prepared for silence. Hastings felt uneasy, the air heavy, Her words, even heavier. Poirot pressed again. You gain from his death the estate. She shook her head. None but his will blocks me. I gain nothing. The inspector narrowed eyes. But freedom? Her lips curved, faint. Yes, that is something. Hastings shifted. He saw the contradiction. Grief absent. Calm. Too sharp. Poirot leaned closer. Madame, if not you, then who? She looked at him. Director. Cold. I have no answer. Poirot tapped the table. The visitor was trusted. He allowed entry. He sat him close. She gave a half shrug. Then it was someone he trusted more than me. The inspector frowned. Her tone disturbed him. Not anger, not fear, only detachment. Poirot whispered to Hastings. She contradicts herself, strained yet prepared, calm yet bitter. Hastings nodded. She hides something. Bianca adjusted her scarf. Her hands never trembled. Her eyes stayed steady. Then her voice dropped, low, sharp, almost a whisper. They say... She paused, her gaze fixed on the floor. I killed him. Every face hid something. The drawing room filled slowly. Servants guided each in. Poirot stood near the desk. Hastings kept to his side. First came Teresa, dark dress, eyes lowered, mouth pressed. She spoke nothing, but her glance moved fast, corner to corner, then away. Poirot studied her. No words, only silence, but silence. Speaks. Fear sits. Behind silence. Next came Julio, the valet, his step quick, head bowed, hands folded tight. He looked loyal, too loyal, as if repeating lines in his head. Poirot raised a brow. You served him closely? Julio nodded fast. Every day, monsieur. His voice trembled. Then he clamped his jaw. Correction, a man. Fighting slip. Carlo entered next. The secretary, measured steps, crisp suit, eyes sharp, hands clean. No twitch, no hesitation. Poirot asked, You managed his papers? Carlo inclined his head. Always. The voice steady, controlled, rehearsed, nothing wasted. Poirot noted the posture. Straight, exact. A man who edits? Even his walk, too precise. Finally, Signora Bellini, the housekeeper, bustling, chin lifted, eyes critical. She adjusted the curtains at once. Fingers smoothed fabric. She frowned at the dust near a lamp. Her lips moved. Not right. Not right. Poirot asked, You run the house? She answered quick. Yes. All must be in order, always order. Her voice clipped. Sharp edges. She corrected a chair's angle. Before she sat. Hastings whispered to Poirot. She notices small things. Poirot nodded. Obsessed, useful. He looked around. Faces set. Hands guarded. No one spoke first. Poirot broke the silence. The count died here. One blow. A visitor sat. The watch placed. Curtains drawn. The lamp burning. Eyes shifted. Julio looked down. Teresa blinked. Carlo stayed still. Bellini adjusted her skirt. Poirot continued. Someone here knows why. He watched them, one by one. Teresa's eyes darted again. Julio chewed his lip. Carlo folded arms. Bellini sniffed at the carpet. Hastings scribbled notes. Each line, crisp. Each reaction, sharp. Poirot asked Teresa. You knew him well? She whispered. Family. Nothing more. He asked Julio. You feared him? Julio said fast. I served him. Not denial. Not truth either. He asked Carlo. You respected him? Carlo replied. I worked for him. Flat. Cold. He asked Bellini. You cared for him? She snapped. I cared for the house. Poirot nodded slowly. He glanced at Hastings. Every answer cuts truth away. Hastings frowned. But none. Give the center. Poirot's eyes narrowed. They hide it, all of them. He walked to the mantel, bent low, lifted a small scrap, faded green, torn edge, ribbon. Poirot turned. He held it up. His gaze swept across the room. Whose is this? A pause. Then Poirot's voice low. A neat crime is never a neat truth. Poirot walked back into the study. Hastings followed close. The inspector waited by the door. Poirot pointed at the desk. Observe. The inkwell sat heavy, bronze, dark stains at the rim, not spilled, not clumsy, purposeful. Hastings crouched. One strike? Poirot nodded. Exactly one. Clean. Measured. The inspector crossed his arms. No signs of struggle. Poirot agreed. Because there was trust. He never saw it coming. Poirot moved to the carpet. His finger traced a dent. Round, pressed deep. He motioned to Hastings. A chair stood here. Hastings frowned. But the chair is against the wall now. Poirot tapped the mark again. It once faced the desk. A visitor sat there. Hastings muttered. Close to him, speaking to him. Poirot said, Yes. A meeting, not forced, invited. The inspector leaned in. You're saying he welcomed his killer? Poirot gave a slow nod, with open trust. Poirot then moved to the drawers. One left ajar, not wide, just enough. He pulled it open fully. Papers inside, stacked, not disturbed. But one detail stood out. Poirot bent lower. His hand reached in. He pulled a small bundle, tied with ribbon, faded green. Hastings looked closer. Letters? Poirot's eyes narrowed. Yes, letters. He untied the ribbon. Slowly. Pages unfolded. Handwriting smooth, flowing, not hurried. Feminine. Hastings read over his shoulder. His eyes widened. Love letters. Poirot gave no reaction. He flipped each page. Signature missing. Only an initial. L. The inspector snatched one. He scanned quickly. Affection. Secrets. Promises. Poirot stopped him. Do not crumple them. They are evidence. Hastings whispered. So the Count had an affair. Poirot shook his head. Perhaps. But affairs are common. Murder is not. He tapped the ribbon. Note the knot. Not careless. Practiced. Poirot stacked the pages again. He tied the ribbon back. Exact. Tight. As before. Hastings asked, Why keep them here? Poirot answered, Because they were leverage, or trophies, or both. The inspector said, Then the wife has reason? Poirot replied, And so does the writer. Hastings spoke low. Who sat in that chair? The wife? The cousin? The secretary? Poirot stood silent. He looked from the chair mark to the drawer, from the ribbon to the desk. His face unreadable. Hastings pressed again. Who sat there, Poirot? Poirot lifted the top page. The ink shone faint. The signature line, bare. But one mark remained, single, bold. He raised the sheet high, his eyes sharp. His voice quiet. A letter. He paused. Signed only. He turned it for them all to see. L. One ribbon, one hand, one secret. Poirot placed the bundle on the desk. Green ribbon tight, edges frayed, not neat, not careless, practiced. Hastings leaned close. Strange ribbon? Poirot nodded. Yes. Strange. Familiar to someone. He loosened the knot. Pages slid free. Thin paper, faded ink, handwriting clear, flowing lines, deliberate curves. Poirot read aloud. My beloved, the night was long without you. He stopped. Folded page. Placed aside. Next letter. The city stirs, but I think only of you. He folded that, too. Hastings shifted. Love letters. Poirot said softly. Indeed, but not common ones. He stacked 3 more, each signed the same, a single initial. L. The inspector frowned. No surname? Poirot shook his head. Only this, one letter. Powerful enough. Hastings whispered, Bianca? Poirot raised a hand. Number Bianca does not write like this. Look at the ink. Look at the folds. These are handled with care, treasured, not resentful. He reached for envelopes. Postmarks stood out. Siena, Lucca, Livorno. Poirot traced each with his finger. 3 cities, 3 drops, but only one path. Hastings frowned. Meaning? Poirot tapped the table. 1 sender, not 3. 1 hand posted all. Traveling, or using others to post. The inspector muttered. Could be a trick. Poirot shook his head. Not trick. Pattern, always a pattern. Criminals hide in disorder, but they leave order, always. He spread the letters, each word neat, each envelope aligned, even spacing, no random scatter. Hastings scratched his head. So the Count kept them close. Why? Poirot answered at once. Because he valued them, or feared them, perhaps both. They were control. The inspector snapped. Then the wife killed him. Jealousy. Poirot said calm. No. Too simple. Too easy. A crime neat as this needs a hand steady. A hand trained. Hastings pointed to the ribbon. And this detail? Poirot smiled faint. Ribbon comes from boxes, gloves, hats, not random string. A lady's touch. He tied it again, exact as before. He slid the letters back, set them flat, exact, measured. Hastings asked, so who is L? Poirot's eyes narrowed. That is the question, not what she wrote, not where she sent, but who she is. The inspector pressed harder. Then find her. She is motive. Poirot raised his hand. Calm, my friend. Too soon. To find her, we must not chase her name. We must chase her method. Hastings leaned forward. Method? Poirot tapped the postmarks again. Yes, Siena, Lucca, Livorno. 3 points, 1 circle. She moves in shadow, but not far. Poirot lifted the top sheet again. The curves of the letter gleamed. Software confident. A secret voice on paper. Poirot bent low. His voice, almost a whisper. L is alive. He paused. And near. Truth spreads like ripples. Watch the faces. Dinner began in silence. Each guest sat stiff. Plates touched, but no appetite. Poirot cleared his throat. He spoke lightly. I found some letters today. Forks paused. Eyes flicked. No one spoke. He continued. Tied with ribbon, green, very neat. Teresa shifted. Her hand tightened on the glass. She drank quick. Her eyes moved down. Julio coughed once. Too loud. He pressed a napkin to his mouth. His hand trembled. Bellini frowned. Letters left in drawers? Disorder. She shook her head. Her lips pressed. She muttered, not proper. Carlo sat still. Knife and fork aligned. No twitch, no cough. But his eyes darted. Only once. Toward the clock on the wall. Hastings noticed. He leaned closer to Poirot. Did you see that? Poirot whispered. Yes. I saw. Poirot spoke louder again. They were posted from Siena, from Lucca, from Livorno. Teresa froze. Her fork touched plate. Too hard. The sound sharp. She forced a smile, thin, weak. Julio dropped his napkin, bent fast to pick it up. His ears flushed red. He stayed bent too long. Bellini scoffed. Too much waste on paper. Love should be work, not writing. Her tone bitter. She reached for bread. She tore it roughly. Carlo lifted his glass, drank slow. Still no words, still calm. But again, his eyes moved. To the clock. Then away. Poirot's gaze stayed fixed. Not on the food, not on the plates, only on their faces. Hastings wrote notes. Teresa, glass shaking. Julio, ears red. Bellini. Angry mutters. Carlo. 2 glances at the clock. Poirot spoke once more. They were signed, not with a name, just a single letter. The letter L. The room held breath. No sound. 3 seconds. Silent. Then Teresa pushed back her chair. I must excuse myself. Her voice faint. She left fast. Julio stood half up. Shall I? Poirot cut him short. Sit. Julio obeyed. Hands clenched. Bellini only muttered louder. Shameful, all shameful. Carlo folded his napkin, perfect square, placed beside his plate. He looked up at Poirot, expression blank. But his hand touched the table edge. firm, controlling. Poirot rose. He bowed slightly. Merci. Enough for tonight. The guests left. Steps heavy. Doors closed. Hastings whispered at once. Well? You saw them all. Teresa nearly broke. Julio flushed. Bellini ranted. But Carlo? He showed nothing. Poirot shook his head. Not nothing. Something very clear. Hastings leaned closer. What? Poirot's voice dropped. Quiet. Sharp. Carlo froze. At Livorno. Secrets travel faster than letters. Hastings left the dining room. He needed air. The corridor stretched long. A door stood ajar. He stepped into the courtyard. Cool stone underfoot. The fountain trickled faintly. But his ears caught voices. He paused, pressed against the wall, listened. Teresa's voice, low, urgent. If he finds out who wrote them... Julio answered quick. He must not. Never. Do you hear me? Her breath shook. I was careless. Too many words, too many letters. Julio hissed back. Number, you were not careless. He kept them. He hid them. You did not place them in that drawer. Hastings leaned closer. His heart beat fast. The words struck sharp. Teresa whispered again. What if Poirot sees through me? Julio spat. He sees too much already. That is his danger. Hastings clenched his jaw. Every word pointed. Every word circled the same truth. Teresa wrote the letters. Julio's tone hardened. You must deny, always deny, nothing else. She answered faint. And if he shows the ribbon? Julio snapped. Say it was not yours. Say it belonged to anyone else. Her reply trembled. But he watches my eyes. I feel it. He already suspects. Julio cursed. Then silence. Silence saves. Words destroy. Hastings held his breath. He dared not move. The courtyard carried sound, clear. Every phrase cut. Like glass. Teresa murmured, I loved him. I cannot hide it. Julio struck back fast. Love kills. Do you not see? Love has already killed. Hastings gripped the stone ledge. His notes in his head grew sharper. Poirot must hear this, at once. But Teresa spoke again, her tone raw. He promised me freedom. He said he would change everything. Then he laughed. Julio answered. And you still defend him? He ruined us all. You owe him nothing. She gasped. But the letters, they tie me, they mark me. Julio cut in hard. Then burn them, or pray Poirot burns them. For you. Hastings blinked. The name struck him. They knew Poirot by name. They feared him. Teresa lowered her voice. Perhaps Carlo suspects. He stares too much. Julio sneered. Carlo suspects everyone. He thinks himself clever. He will trap himself. Before Poirot does. Hastings leaned even closer. His hand slid across stone. He tried to hear. Each last word. Teresa whispered, If anyone learns, I am Her voice cracked. She stopped. Julio hushed her quick. No more. Not here. Hastings shifted his foot. Stone scraped. The sound echoed. Both voices stopped. Silence. Dead silence. Hastings froze. He prayed. They had not heard. He stepped back once, then again. His heel hit a step. He stumbled. The noise, loud. The voices cut off. Siena, Lucca, Livorno, not random. Poirot spread the envelopes on the desk. 3 cities stamped clear. Siena, Lucca, Livorno. Hastings leaned over. All different. 3 places. Could be 3 people. Poirot shook his head. Non. 1 person, 1 hand. See the alignment. See the fold. He tapped each envelope. Exact. Same weight. Same paper. Same care. The inspector frowned. But the postmarks, different offices. Poirot nodded. Oui. But the journey is possible. 1 train line. Stops at Siena. Stops at Lucca. Stops at Livorno. 1 traveler. 1 plan. Hastings scribbled notes. So L traveled. Mailed at each point. Returned here. Poirot smiled faint. Not foolish, Hastings. Very close. He placed the letters side by side. Perfect row, no tilt, neat. Poirot tapped again. The ink matches, same flow, no change of hand. The pressure of the pen, consistent, even when miles apart. Hastings asked. So she moved city to city? Poirot answered. Perhaps. Or she gave them to others, trusted friends, but one mind directed it. The inspector muttered, complication. Poirot shook his head. Number simplicity, 3 points, 1 circle. Always. Look for the circle. He drew out a map, Florence at the center, lines marked to Siena, to Lucca, to Livorno. He traced them slow, finger steady. See, Hastings? See the design? Hastings nodded. Yes, a triangle, but all led back here. Poirot looked at him. Exactly, to Florence. To this palazzo. The inspector crossed arms. So the sender lives here? Poirot tapped the desk. Lives near, travels short, posts letters outward, makes them appear distant, creates illusion of distance. Hastings frowned. Why bother? Poirot answered. To disguise origin, to suggest lovers scattered, to confuse searchers, a clever mask. Hastings thought hard. But why risk so much? She could have written none at all. Poirot replied, because passion writes, when reason warns. That is always the way. Poirot placed the map flat. He circled Siena, then Lucca, then Livorno. His finger returned to Florence. Notice, he said, the timing. Each postmark 2 days apart. A moving route. Regular, not random. The inspector leaned in. So she planned this like a timetable. Poirot agreed. Yes, but the timetable shows habit. Habit is identity. Identity cannot hide forever. Hastings tapped the ribbon. And the ribbon? Poirot's eyes narrowed. A woman uses what she has. Always the same knot. Always the same length. Habit. Again. Poirot tied the bundle back. Set it neat. Exact. He turned the map around. His pencil drew one final circle, wide, enclosing Siena, Lucca, Livorno. He stopped at Florence. His voice dropped. The sender lives close. A ribbon tells more than lips. Poirot placed the ribbon on the table. Faded green, neat knot, precise length. Teresa sat across. Her eyes avoided his. Her hands twisted together. Poirot spoke calm. This ribbon, you recognize it? She shook her head. Too fast, too sharp. Poirot pressed. Such ribbon comes from glove boxes, hat boxes. You own many. Her lips parted. No words came, only breath. Poirot leaned closer. Madame, you wrote the letters. Do not deny it. Her eyes lifted, at last, wide, dark, filled with fear. She whispered, Yes. Hastings gasped. The inspector stiffened. Bellini muttered from the corner. Poirot asked, Why write them? Teresa answered slow, Because I loved him. Her voice cracked. Her hand covered her face. I loved the Count. The inspector barked. Love? Then you had motive to kill. Teresa shook her head. Number I wrote. I met, but I did not kill. Poirot's eyes narrowed. You admit the meetings? She nodded. Yes, in secret, in shadow, but never with harm. Hastings leaned forward. Tell us the last time. Teresa breathed deep. 2 nights before his death. He called me, said he needed me. I went. Poirot's gaze sharpened. And the morning? She clenched her fists. I came. I saw him in the study, alive, writing. He spoke little. He looked tired. Hastings asked, Did you quarrel? Her head shook. Number I begged him to change, to let us be free. He only smiled, then told me to leave. Poirot asked softly, What time? She swallowed. Near 8. The bells had just struck. I left him there, alone. The inspector leaned hard. Convenient. You leave. He dies. You hide. Teresa cried out. No, I left him alive, I swear it. Poirot watched her steady. Her words carried no pause. Her eyes stayed firm. He said, You loved him? Yet you feared him? She nodded once. Yes, he promised me freedom, then mocked me. He held the letters as chains. He never meant release. Hastings muttered, so he kept them to trap you. Poirot nodded. Yes, trophies, or blackmail. The inspector slammed his fist. And still you claim innocence? Teresa's voice rose. I am guilty of love, guilty of letters, guilty of weakness, but not of murder. Poirot folded his arms. He studied her face. He found no crack, only grief. He asked one final time, when you left, what did you see? Her answer came slow. The lamp was on, the curtains closed, his watch off. He sat writing, alive, breathing. Poirot leaned closer. You are sure? Her eyes met his, unblinking, certain. Yes, alive. She drew in breath. Her voice fell to a whisper. Then someone came after me, she says. Order betrays time. Signora Bellini stood firm, hands on her apron, eyes sharp. Poirot gestured to the desk. The drawer. Tell me. She sniffed. It was not shut, left ajar, a small gap, enough to notice. Hastings asked, You are certain? She nodded. Of course, I see everything. The drawer never lies. Poirot leaned closer. When did you see it? Her answer quick. After 9, when I entered to dust. Only for a moment. Hastings frowned. After 9, that matters. Bellini pressed on. The Count never left drawers open, never, always exact. Papers stacked, pens aligned, watch placed carefully. Poirot tilted his head. Yet this time, she snapped, this time wrong. Drawer left half open, not natural, not his habit. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Habits matter. They betray truth. He moved to the curtains. Who touched these? Bellini folded her arms. I did not. They were shut already. Not my work. Poirot asked, At what hour? She answered without pause. After 9. They had been closed then, the lamp still on, odd in the morning. Yet I said nothing. Hastings whispered to Poirot. That matches Teresa's time. Poirot nodded slightly. Yes, the timelines cross. Bellini continued. I keep this house in order. Every room exact. Chairs straight. Drawers closed. Curtains drawn only at evening. That is my rule. Her voice grew firm. And when rules break, I see. Poirot watched her closely. You insist on order, but order hides lies. Tell me again. She repeated without pause. Drawer ajar, curtains shut. After 9, Hastings asked, Was the Count alive then? She shrugged. I did not see him. The door closed, but the lamp burned. Someone was there, or had been. Poirot tapped the desk. One detail, small but great. The drawer left half open. That is signal. Someone searched. Someone left fast. Bellini shook her head. Not fast. Careless. Poirot corrected her. Number not careless. Controlled. Enough to appear careless. Enough to mislead. The inspector muttered. Why not close it, then? Poirot replied. Because half open speaks louder. It says, Look here. See the letters. Someone wanted them found. Hastings whispered. Then this was staged. Poirot answered. Yes. Staged. Exactly. Bellini bristled. I hate disorder. This crime insults me. Nothing should be left wrong. Poirot raised a hand. Not wrong, signora. Designed. Every detail chosen. The drawer, the curtains, the lamp, all signals. He straightened, his eyes fixed on Hastings, his tone low. Yes, order exposes disorder. Loyalty twists truth. Julio sat across from Poirot, hands clenched, eyes down. Poirot spoke calm. You serve the Count daily? Julio nodded. Every morning, every night, always. Poirot pressed. Then you know his habits? Yes. Exact times? Yes. Poirot leaned forward. And yet, your words shift. Julio's head jerked up. My words? Hastings read from notes. First you said you saw him alive after 8. Later you said closer to 9. Which is it? Julio hesitated. sweat on his brow. His lips tightened. Poirot tapped the desk. Truth does not change, Lise du Julio stammered. I was confused. Poirot cut him. Non, you were not confused. You were loyal. You twisted truth to protect someone. Julio froze. His chest heaved once. Then his shoulders dropped. Yes. Hastings leaned in. Protect who? Julio's voice cracked. Signorina Teresa. Poirot's eyes narrowed. You shielded her. Julio nodded weak. She is innocent. She is family. She is all I have. Poirot asked, Then you lied to the police? Yes. You moved her name aside? Yes. The inspector growled. That is obstruction. Julio looked up sharp. Better obstruction than ruin. She did not kill. She only wrote. Only loved. Poirot said, And you knew about the letters? Julio whispered, Yes. I carried them. Sometimes I posted them. I thought it harmless, but then... His voice trailed off. He buried his face in his hands. Poirot finished for him. But then the Count used them. He kept them. He turned them into chains. Julio nodded again, silent tears down his cheeks. Hastings asked, Did you ever think of killing the Count yourself? Julio looked horrified. Number never. I feared him, but I obeyed. I never struck him. Poirot leaned back. You had chance. You had access, but you lacked courage, and the crime was too precise. For you. Julio exhaled. You are right. I could not. My hands shake too much. Look. He held them up. Trembling fingers. Poirot nodded. Yes. Not the hand of one blow. Not the hand of perfect control. The inspector slammed his fist. Then why lie? Why hide? Julio answered with sudden force. Because the world would blame her. Because her name would be destroyed. Because she is not guilty of murder. Poirot stared. His tone softened. You thought lies would save her. But lies only bind tighter. Julio lowered his head. I know. But I could not let them drag her into the grave with him. Silence hung. Poirot finally spoke. You lied to protect her, but you never protected truth. Julio lifted his face, eyes red, voice faint. I hid her shame, not his crime. Even perfect men misstep. Carlo sat straight, hands folded, face calm. Poirot spoke first. You claim you were at the telegraph office? Carlo nodded once. Yes, sending messages for the Count. Poirot asked, At what time? Carlo answered, From 8:45 until 9:15. Hastings wrote it down, precise, exact. Poirot tilted his head, very exact. Carlo replied, I keep records, always exact. Poirot smiled faint. Exactness is a double edge. He pulled a slip of paper, the telegraph log, stamps in ink. Times marked. Poirot placed it flat. Let us compare. Carlo adjusted his glasses, eyes scanned quick. He said, Yes, that is correct. Poirot tapped one line. Message sent, 8:47. He tapped again. Next message, 9:02. Poirot leaned closer. You see the space? Carlo stayed silent. Poirot continued. 15 minutes, empty, no record, no activity. Hastings muttered, Enough time to leave, enough time to return. Carlo's lips pressed. I was waiting for reply. Poirot shook his head. Non. Replies are not logged as empty gaps. If you waited, you stood idle. But no clerk recalls you standing. The inspector joined in. The clerk says you left, returned later. Carlo's face tightened. He lies. I was there. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Carlo, you value precision, yet precision condemns you. The gap exists. You cannot erase it. Hastings asked, How long to walk from Telegraph to Palazzo? Poirot answered himself. 6 minutes each way. Add 1 minute. Enough for one strike. Carlo leaned back. Ridiculous. Poirot tapped the inkwell on the desk. One strike, no struggle, no mess. A man with steady hand, a man with calm mind, a man like you. Carlo's jaw set hard. He stared at the floor, silent. Poirot pressed further. You said 9:15, but the log ends 9:02. You returned later, too late to save your story. Hastings whispered, "He is caught." The inspector slammed his fist. "Answer, man. Were you there or not?" Carlo spoke, flat. "I was there." Poirot shook his head. "You were not. You walked here. You entered. You struck once, then you left back to the office, calm, clean, as if nothing happened." Carlo's hands gripped the chair arms, knuckles white, still no word. Poirot leaned close. "Only one detail betrayed you. The gap. 15 minutes. You thought no one would measure, but I measured." Carlo finally looked up, his eyes sharp. "You accuse without proof." Poirot replied, "I accuse with time, and time is proof." Silence filled the room. Carlo's breath grew shallow. Hastings stared. The inspector waited. Poirot spoke the last line, his voice low, precise. "You had enough time to strike. One lamp, one curtain, one blow." Poirot stood in the study, Hastings beside him, the inspector near the door, Carlo silent. Poirot raised his hand. "Now, we show the sequence." He pointed first at the curtains. They were closed, not natural at morning. Someone closed them, that is fact. He touched the lamp. Still burning, no need for light at that hour. Yet it burned. Another fact. He moved to the chair mark. A chair once here, facing the desk, visitor seated, count across from him. Calm, no alarm. Poirot motioned Hastings to sit. Hastings obeyed. He placed himself at the desk. Poirot stood behind the visitor's chair. "Now watch." Poirot picked up the bronze inkwell, heavy, cold. Balanced in his hand, he stepped closer. Conversation flows. Count leans forward. Visitor lifts the inkwell, not fast, not wild, slow, precise. Poirot swung downward, stopped just short of Hastings' head. Impact here, one strike, no second needed. The Count dead at once. Hastings swallowed hard. The inspector shifted his feet. Poirot set the inkwell back. He pointed at the rug. Blow landed, body slumped, yet nothing thrown, no fight, no overturn. Only stillness. He turned to the drawer. Visitor pulls drawer, half open, leaves it so. Why? He answered himself. To lead us, to make us find letters, to point away, to misdirect. Poirot pushed the drawer shut, then opened it halfway again. Exact, clean. Not accident, purpose, always purpose. He walked to the chair. He dragged it back against the wall. Visitor moves chair, erases his seat, but mark on rug remains. He forgets that. Hastings nodded. Yes, he thought only of sight, not of weight. Poirot tapped the rug mark. Weight never lies. He turned to Carlo. You know this well. You planned every step. You left no mess. Only signs of order. Carlo's lips pressed. He said nothing. Poirot lifted the watch from the drawer. Visitor placed this inside, not on wrist. Why, to show privacy, to suggest trust, to cover motive. He placed it back. Exact. Neat. Poirot raised the inkwell again. This weapon was not chosen in rage, not snatched at random. It was lifted with calm, with steady hand. He slammed it down on the desk. The sound rang sharp. He looked at them all, his eyes narrowed. His voice cold. This was method, not passion. Method kills. Compassion. Carlo stood rigid, his eyes steady, his jaw tight. Poirot faced him. You planned it. You executed it. One blow, one strike. Carlo did not answer. He breathed slow, measured. Poirot pressed. Your alibi failed. 15 minutes free. Enough to walk, enough to kill. Carlo's lips parted, finally. Words came. Yes, I went. Hastings jolted. The inspector leaned forward. Carlo spoke, flat. I went because I had to. He would ruin her. He would crush Teresa. He gripped the chair arms. She loved him. He mocked her. He used her. Then he threatened her name. He promised to spread it, to destroy her life. Poirot folded his arms. So you killed. To protect? Carlo nodded once. Yes, not for myself. For her. She is innocent. Poirot shook his head. Number. This was not protection. This was control. This was method. Carlo frowned. I struck because I had no choice. Poirot snapped back. You always had choice. Compassion forgives. Method kills. And you chose method. Carlo's breathing quickened. He would never stop. She begged him. He laughed. He deserved nothing else. Poirot raised a finger. Deserve? Non. Law decides, not you, and law does not strike with bronze inkwells. Hastings wrote fast, every word sharp, every word final. Carlo's tone hardened. I loved her. She needed safety. I gave it. Poirot leaned forward. You gave her chains. Murder is not safety. Murder binds tighter than scandal. Carlo clenched his fists. I was careful. One blow. Clean. No pain. Poirot shook his head again. You tell yourself lies. This was not mercy. This was calculation. You closed the curtains. You moved the chair. You staged the drawer. All order. No heart. Carlo's eyes narrowed. Then so be it. I accept it. I did it. I killed him. The inspector stepped forward, hands on cuffs. Carlo lifted his chin. I regret nothing. Teresa lives free. That is enough. Poirot's gaze stayed cold. Number, she will never live free. She will live bound by what you did, by what you call love. Carlo's shoulders sagged. For the first time, his voice cracked. I could not watch her ruined. Poirot answered firm. You ruined her more. You destroyed balance, yes, and you destroyed compassion. Silence filled the study. Hastings held his pen still. The inspector waited for the word. Poirot gave the word. Now. The inspector stepped forward. Metal glinted. The cuffs closed fast. Handcuffs snapped shut. When order returns, silence remains. Bianca entered the room. The inspector spoke first. You are cleared. Evidence shows no part. She exhaled once. No smile, no word. Only silence. Poirot bowed his head slightly. You are free, madame. She nodded. Her eyes stayed blank. Hastings whispered to Poirot. She feels nothing? Poirot replied. She feels much, but she buries it. Teresa sat apart, hands folded, head low, her lips sealed tight. Hastings approached her. You are safe now. Carlo confessed. She shook her head. No one is safe, not me. Her voice dropped. He killed for me. That stains me. More than any letter. Poirot heard. He walked closer. You are not guilty of murder. Her reply sharp. But guilty of love, guilty of silence, that is enough. Julio stood behind her. He placed a hand on her chair. I will not leave you, signorina. Teresa did not look at him. Her eyes fixed down. Still silence. The inspector muttered. Strange loyalty. He shields her. Even now. Poirot answered calm. Loyalty blinds. It hides truth. Yet loyalty remains. Bianca rose. She spoke at last. I leave this house. Let the estate fall. I want nothing more. The inspector nodded. As you wish. She walked out slow. No farewell. Only distance. Poirot turned to Hastings. See, mon ami. Justice does not heal. Justice only balances. For a time. Hastings sighed. And mercy? Poirot paused. Mercy is harder. Mercy demands more than law can give. They looked at Teresa again, her face pale, her mouth closed, her heart heavy. Poirot murmured, She lives, but in silence. Julio stood taller. I will speak for her. Always. Poirot shook his head. Number. You cannot speak away guilt. Not hers, not yours. Guilt remains. Silent, but strong. The inspector prepared his papers. Case near closed. All seemed done. Poirot gathered his notes. He placed the ribbon bundle in a folder. He tied it tight, exact. He whispered to Hastings, "The case shows truth. But truth leaves wounds. Some wounds never close." Hastings asked, "Then what have we gained?" Poirot answered, "Balance. Nothing more." The inspector called from the hall, "Poirot, a message, delivered just now." A servant entered, envelope in hand, seal unbroken, green ribbon tied neat. Poirot's eyes fixed, his voice low. "A messenger brings new letter, tied with green ribbon." "Murder ends? Secrets don't." Poirot held the envelope, green ribbon tied, not exact, paper crisp. Hastings leaned forward. "Another?" Poirot nodded. "Yes, another." He untied the ribbon, slid the page free. Same paper, same ink, same flowing hand. Hastings whispered, "L again?" Poirot read aloud, "Do not believe all you see. Some truths remain hidden." He folded it back, set it on the desk. Hastings frowned. Not the same tone. Poirot agreed. Number. The others were love. This one, warns. The inspector entered. "Another game, monsieur?" Poirot shook his head. "Not game, continuation." He lifted the ribbon again. Same knot, same touch, but intent has changed. Hastings pressed. "Then L still writes?" Poirot answered, "Oui, still near, still breathing." Teresa sat silent, her eyes heavy, her lips unmoving. Julio hovered behind her, his stare fixed on the floor. Bianca had gone, the house quieter, yet not at peace. Hastings asked, "Does this mean Carlo lied again?" Poirot shook his head. Number Carlo killed, that is true, but truth itself is not whole. There are more threads. He tapped the letter. This is one of them. Hastings sighed. Then it never ends. Poirot nodded slowly. Never. Because passion does not end. Only order tries to cage it, and order always fails. He looked at Hastings. Balance is temporary. Human hearts do not obey balance. The inspector grumbled. "Then what do we write in our report?" Poirot replied, calm. "Write the facts. Carlo confessed. Carlo struck. Carlo staged. Case closed." Hastings muttered, "But not finished." Poirot corrected him. "Closed, not finished. That is the truth of murder." He tied the ribbon back, placed the letter with the others, stacked neat, aligned. His eyes lingered on the bundle. A life ended, a secret survived. That is always the pattern. Hastings leaned on the desk. "So what do we learn?" Poirot answered softly. "That justice is never final. That order is never permanent. That passion always leaves its mark." He turned toward the window. The curtains half open now. Light cut across the desk. Poirot's voice lowered. "In every case I see the same. Human order tries. Human passion breaks it again and again." Hastings looked down. "Then what hope remains?" Poirot faced him, his eyes steady, his tone clear. "In murder, Hastings, balance is never perfect.